Welcome to Marvelous Disney, the podcast that discusses the most recent doings at one of the more dynamic divisions of the Walt Disney Company, which is, of course, Marvel Entertainment. This is entertainment writer Jim Hill, and my co-host, the amazing Aaron Adams, and I are recording this week's episode on Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022. And Aaron, you were just mentioning that you saw some footage from the production of Kraven, is that right?
Yeah, and it was rather surprising. It was some stunt action. The thing I found surprising about it was he was strapped to the side of the car like he was hanging on, like a villain was getting away and he was going to rip open the door or something heroic like that. Mm-hmm. So he was physically stuck to the side of the car and he wasn't wearing any shoes. But he was wearing, I want to say, like nicer clothing, like a suit and a nice button-up shirt, and maybe where he took off a tie and jacket, while sprinting after said bad guy. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But it was a weird look, but it seemed right. It seemed primal and animalistic to be barefoot, sticking to a car, trying to chase down a baddie or something. So rather interesting little clip there.
Where exactly are they shooting this?
I want to say that they were filming in Australia.
Well, there's one way to get an answer to that. We type in Australia. Yes, look at that.
Hey,
Australia.
I got one right.
There you go. Okay. So that's on the horizon for 2023. But of course, later this month, we have Moon Knight, which held its launch event just last night, Aaron.
It's Moon Launch?
I'm kind of intrigued by this term. I mean, movies have premieres, but evidently now in this new space of a limited series, you have a launch. It launches on a certain date. Over time, you get to see those 6 episodes. So this is a launch event. And we got all sorts of little weird bits of news from the red carpet, which was, in fact, they had to set up the event behind the El Capitan Theater, because directly across the street is the Dolby Theater, where the Academy Awards will be held this Sunday. And so it was just one of these things where it's like, okay, you go to the back of the building, because we've grabbed the prestigious front of the building.
Hey, Mac, you want to see a movie? Go in through the fire exit back here in the alley, right next to the dumpster. It's real prestigious and such.
Yeah, but again, they paved the parking lot with red carpet, which I thought was kind of cool. Yeah. Anyway, like I said, lots of interesting news coming out of last night's launch event. And speaking of news, the news portion of this week's Marvelous Disney is brought to you by Storybook Destination, trusted travel partner of the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. For a worry-free travel experience, please book online at StorybookDestinations.com. Okay, walking the red carpet. I mean, again, Aaron, we know from your comments on previous shows that the celebrity Tron 5000, that they're all so carefully coached and programmed to say, I enjoyed working with the fill in the name here, or,
right.
That sort of thing.
We just call them the Stepford Stars.
There we go. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's kind of a trick in the trade that you throw them a question not expecting. In fact, I was just listening to You Must Remember This, and this trick runs all the way back to, I guess, Rona Barrett and Hedda Hopper, that if you wanted a celebrity to move off of their carefully coached practice points, you throw a question at them at the very top of the interview, like, how good are you in bed? And it's just sort of like, I thought we were here to talk about my movie. And it's like, but now they're rattled and they'll give you real answers. And I guess there were a number of reporters who tried to do this last night at the event. And one of the things they did was they asked Oscar Isaac what he thought of the legislation coming out of Florida, the Don't Say Gay thing that clearly Disney has bobbled its response to. And Oscar said it's absolutely ridiculous law. It's insane. It's insanity. And I hope that Disney as a company comes out as forcefully as possible against this idea. It's astounding that it even exists in this country. But then again, you have to remember the whole notion of, according to this legislation, kids in grades 1, 2, 3, the teachers are not supposed to mention gay. And so Isaac's response to that was to then start singing gay, 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 gay. And it was one of these things where it's like, given that Josh Gad played LeFou in the 2017 live action version of Beast, and there was all of this comment during that time about how in that Bill Condon film, LeFou was really fond of Gaston, and in fact had a significant gay moment, supposedly, during the film. And Josh actually pushed back on that recently. He said, we didn't go far enough to warrant accolades. This is in an interview with The Independent. He said, we didn't go far enough to say, look how brave we are. My regret is that this supposedly became Disney's first explicitly gay moment, and it was never intended to be that. It was never supposed to be a moment where we'd laud ourselves, because frankly, I don't think we did justice to what a real character, a real gay character in a Disney film should do. Anyway, did you see how strongly Marvel came out in regard to this whole issue? The statement they issued, I want to say just yesterday?
No, I have not yet seen their statement. What did they have to say about it?
They said, we strongly denounce any and all legislation that infringes on basic human rights of the LGBTQIA plus community. Marvel Studios stands for hope, inclusivity, and strength, and we proudly stand with the community. Today, we pledge to continue our strong commitment as allies who promote the values of equality, acceptance, and respect. And to circle, underline, and indent that they were serious about this, the Marvel Studios employees took part in the walkout that was held all over the place for Disney yesterday. Again, there's 200,000 employees worldwide, and so there are people walking out in New York and Orlando and, of course, Burbank. And a lot of Marvel employees strolled out of the Frank Wells building. And meanwhile, Bob Chapek and the PR team at Disney are just trying to get their arms around this whole problem. The very thing that Chapek feared, that if Disney took a political stance, someone would try to take advantage of it, turned out to be true. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is actually using what's going on at Disney right now to fundraise for his PAC. In fact, he sent out an email to his would-be supporters calling the Walt Disney Company the woke Disney Company. And Disney doesn't, or for that matter, Marvel doesn't want the Moon Knight launch event to become a political forum. They're there to make sure that everybody knows that this 6-episode series debuts on Disney Plus on March 30th. And at the same time, though, like I said, we got weird little tidbits of news, like, for example, Moon Knight director Mohab Diab revealed to Games Radar that WandaVision is not coming back for a second season. He said, it's a crazy world right now. Even with Marvel's successful shows like WandaVision, they're not doing season 2. That character jumped from a limited series to a film, so maybe she's going to come back or not. I don't know. And that's exciting.
No. That's not exciting. That's just, we don't know how we're going to use her next, and that's okay. I mean, that's all that he really needs to say. It doesn't have to be. See, that's that BS corporate speak that is like, hooray, I don't know anything, guys. Isn't that wonderful? And it's like, no, just say that when we need her, and we'll write her into a script, and we'll go, hey, call her up and see if she's available. I think we need her all of a sudden because I just wrote her into a script.
Well, again, interesting you say that, because X-Fire, they're the ones who broke this story 2 weeks ago that you and I alluded to about how supposedly Elizabeth has just signed a 7-year contract with Marvel Studios. And supposedly on the heels of what happens in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, is supposed to become a major player in the MCU, with her character appearing in multiple films and limited series over the course of Phase 4 and 5. In fact, there's reportedly language in Elizabeth Olsen's new deal with Marvel Studios that calls for the development of a standalone Scarlet Witch movie, which would be interesting to see. Just today, I finally broke open my copy of The Art of WandaVision. They really do a deep dive on the whole notion of, okay, episode 1 is supposed to be 1950s television by way of Dick Van Dyke. Episode 2 is supposed to be Dick Van Dyke bleeding into Bewitched. And they then just walk through costume choices and prop choices. And they made a big deal about even the recipe cards that you see floating in front of Elizabeth in the first episode are supposedly deliberately written, printed, and put on little wires to hang, keying off the ingredients she has floating in the air around her. I mean, it's crazy attention to detail.
Right.
But yeah, they're not getting around with this character. But the question is now protagonist or antagonist coming out of Multiverse of Madness. Do you want to place a bet here?
Well, she's already been an antagonist in her introduction into the MCU. So it would be a full circle, return if she ended up going that way once again. I think a lot of our most wonderful villains are the ones that we love and can root for in some way and sympathize with and understand. So having her become a villain once again, I think a lot of fans would really enjoy it because she would unleash mad power and do crazy cool things while she was in her rage. But the whole time we'll be rooting for her redemption, not her downfall or her being slain at the hands of a friend or something like that.
And again, there's that pesky multiverse where even if you die, you don't necessarily die.
There's so many questions I've got that will be about what the X-Men mean to the MCU once we get past Doctor Strange. Like, how much of that beyond Patrick Stewart is going to seep through the cracks, so to speak? There was that scene in Deadpool 2 where he's mentioned, like, it's like you couldn't even afford the entire cast. And then they open up the door and there's like the entire cast for that one shot, their one cameo all together. And then they close the door and they're never seen again.
That is a funny scene. That is a genuine.
It is, but I mean, if they could do something like that in Doctor Strange where you just get a glimpse of, Wolverine somewhere and it's like, oh, well, he exists in the MCU and there's that.
Oh, finally found out why we haven't got a teaser trailer yet for Thor: Love and Thunder, and that's supposedly because this Taika Waititi film is doing some reshoots. In fact, it was just reported this week that Christian Bale, who plays the villain of that film, Gore the God Killer, has been working at Manhattan Beach Studios for weeks now as Marvel kind of tinkers with how the villain in this film needs to be perceived. On the other hand, if you do eventually go to a theater and see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, did you see that, and again, this is supposedly Disney doing something to make sure that the Multiverse of Madness will have the biggest possible box office for its opening weekend? So they're putting the trailer for Avatar 2 in front of it?
The trailer for what now?
Avatar 2.
Never heard of it.
Somewhere there's a Disney marketing executive who's grabbing their chest, because you had that reaction. Because this was their brilliant move. This is because didn't they do that with Phantom Menace? I want to say 20th Century Fox when they were teasing the return of the Star Wars trilogies or the revival of the franchise. I think it was Meet Joe Black. They put the trailer in front of that. And
what a cross audience. Oh.
Well, that was the thing. They'd have an auditorium full of people.
And then by the credits, there'd be 10 people left that actually wanted to see Meet Joe Black.
Well, not even that. There were people who would actually get up as soon as the trailer was over and leave the theater.
I think I know or probably worked with a few of the people that actually did that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to say if I'm one of them.
Okay.
But I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Mysteriously, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, again, it just, you were there to see one thing, and you saw it, and you left. So
that was back in the day of dial-up, and I remember we had a 4-hour morning show on the radio every morning, and I remember waiting at least 3 out of those 4 hours to download the trailer for The Phantom Menace when it came out. And then it was an event like everybody had to come gather around like the fire and tell us stories of the old days. Just press the space bar, lad. It'll all come to you now. But there was a more, I hate the word synergy nowadays, but there was a more synergistic approach of if we put this trailer for this much beloved movie, like the return of Star Wars after decades of being away. Mm-hmm. We had episodes 4, 5, and 6. Where the hell are 1, 2, and 3? And lo and behold, one day, episode 1 is coming, trailer. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to make a special event out of it and put it in front of crap movies that couldn't make a nickel otherwise. and we'll see what happens. And it worked. And so that's fine and good. But I also think, if you're going to go see a Marvel movie, it's also a safe bet to throw a couple of Marvel trailers up on the screen. And honestly, Avatar makes perfect sense too, because that is the Marvel audience is the type of audience that would go see Avatar 2. And so it's a perfect place to put that trailer.
I guess, I mean, I on paper, that makes sense to me, but at the same time, I also feel like Avatar was 2009, right? 2009 to
And their job is not to judge. Their job is to promote and market, and you got to do that in the best possible place. And you look at, who do we think would come to this movie? And if you own both Fox and Marvel, then why not use that synergy of a brother and sister corporations and say, hey, we would like to borrow your audience, please. Don't worry, it's not on a date where you've got anything going on. We've got our own date. Can we please have your audience for the theater for a little bit? And Marvel say, of course, because you're in family, we'll do that. And then they put the trailer in front of the Marvel movies, and it's fine. So, yeah, who cares how long it's been? It's just for me to pick at because I can.
Okay.
It doesn't mean anything, though.
I get that. Speaking of which, we would just talk about the reshoots that were going on with Thor: Love and Thunder on the red carpet last night, again for the Moon Knight launch event. Director Mohammed Daib bragged that evidently his limited series had the least additional reshoots in MCU history. And he explained that was because we rehearsed a lot and Marvel gave us a lot of time. So the time we needed to properly develop Moon Knight, and we did extensive table reads out ahead of shooting, and that prep time paid off. But he got asked about, okay, so you've done your limited series, so are you now going to graduate to doing a feature for the Marvel Studios? And he said, it's not how Marvel plays it. I mean, it's not like once you deliver a successful limited series, you immediately graduate and are given a film to direct. Sometimes when you're dealing with the MCU, you can direct the film and then go on to direct a limited series for the same studio. And then your next assignment for Marvel is to maybe direct a movie for theatrical. It's a very fluid situation there. That said, that clearly not the case with Secret Invasion, that limited series that's shooting over in the UK right now. Marvel Studios, when they decided to make this, Aaron, they didn't go with the film director. They hired Kyle Bradstreet, who wrote and executive produced. Did you ever get to see Mr. Robot over?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
It was very good.
Yeah, I mean, very distinct look, very distinct storytelling.
There was a little scene, a little behind the scene with Rami Malek, where he was like talking about the camera shots, right? Because they frame those if you go to film school, they go, this is the rule of thirds, and this is how you frame a shot. And it was like, we're going to do everything that is not that. We're going to go so against that. And so like they're just lining up like one pupil to sit in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, and that's all you see of the actor, right? And Rami Malek was saying, oh, it looks like we're going to be taking a while before you guys are ready. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. No, you're ready now? The camera's not even really pointing at me. Are you sure? Are you sure you're ready right now? Okay. And then he would act and go, I don't know what they're doing, but I hope it's good. And then he would see the result and go, oh man, this is different, but it's effective. And so yeah, I would say it's visionary and bold, and so good choice.
Okay. And we already know about the cast so far. I mean, obviously Samuel L. Jackson coming back playing Nick Fury. Likewise, Ben Mendelsohn returning as Skull Talos. But we've also been seeing photographs from the set of Emilia Clarke, who played Daenerys Targaryen in HBO's Game of Thrones. And it's like, okay, so who's she playing? And nobody at Marvel Studios is talking yet, but the belief is among the folks who are sort of lining up the comic series that was used as the basis for Secret Invasion. She's supposedly playing Sword Commander Abigail Brand, according to the Marvel Comics wiki. Abigail's character is a super spy born on the planet Iwis to an alien father and a human mutant mother, from whom Brand reportedly inherited the X gene, which then gives Abigail the ability to coat her hands with flames that are actually hot enough to cut through metal. Right now, we don't know if Kyle Bradstreet is going to be adhering all that closely to the storyline of the actual Secret Invasion comic book series, but the show is being shot in the UK in Leeds. And there was a story this week in the Direct shared that evidently Kevin Feige was looking at the last 5 or 6 things that had been done for Marvel. And it was like Spider-Man No Way Home, Hawkeye, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Likewise, the upcoming limited series, Ms. Marvel and She-Hulk. And they're primarily set in and around the island of Manhattan. Supposedly, and Kevin's getting a little sensitive to that, so he's asked that future projects, at least for a while, be set someplace else. And I don't know if that's such a good idea.
Sure it is. Come on, we've got a whole world to explore out there, and we've barely even scratched the surface of it. We've seen very little of the Americas to begin with, not that we need to see any more of it, but a hint of Africa. We went to Great Britain for a minute, in, I think, Thor 2.
Yeah.
But really, we haven't been about too much. Well, unless we want to make a financial deal with China so we can, get our movie over there, then of course we'll have a little shot of Shanghai or something like that. But
you see, the problem is, one of my favorite moments out of the entire MCU is in Civil War, the battle at the airport in Leipzig.
Yeah.
And that great moment where just this weird little beat in the middle of the battle where Captain America turns to Spidey and it's like, "You got hard, kid. Where you from?" And it's like, "Queens." And Captain America's like, "Hey, Brooklyn." I mean, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, guys who grew up in the city. I love that vibe. I love that sense. And I'd hate for the MCU films to lose that flavor. But again, Feige seems to just be doing this temporarily.
I mean, Shang-Chi is not, he was in, San Francisco in the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But, some characters just need to be like Black Panther. That character, needs to have a lot of his time in Wakanda or Africa or somewhere like that, because that's where his home is. So
I get that. I do. And it's just, it would just concern me if the film lose.
Well, no, I guess I'm thinking about like the Excalibur squad. Like you get they're British. If you want to go with X-Force, they're Canadian. There's a lot of team ups that come from places, their home base is not the U.S. and that's fine. If we want to get those characters, we got to open up the map.
Okay. I get that. I do. All right. On the other hand, right now, have you been hearing the stories about Morbius and how the test screenings are going?
Oh no. Are they good or bad?
Yeah.
Let's start there.
We will talk about that in a moment.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Every story you love, every invention that moves you, every idea you wished was yours, all began as nothing. Just a blank page with a blinking cursor, asking a simple question. What do you see? Great ideas start on Mac. Find out more on apple.com/Mac.
Every Who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one Who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
You maybe sit through all of that and you wouldn't tell me yet? Come on now, that's been a
Well,
good 3 minutes we've been sitting here.
You don't want to kick somebody when they're down. Again, face
So they're
it.
down. That's what you're saying. They're down. That's what I got out of that,
Well,
right? They're down. Someone's kicking them.
Okay,
What's going on?
we are 10 days out now from Morbius, and the stories that have been bubbling up lately about this Daniel Espinosa film is that it's testing fairly poorly. In fact, that sort of feeds into the 2 trailers we've had so far for Morbius. have really leaned into trying to connect it to the Spider-Man Home trilogy, likewise the 2 Venom movies. And because they're trying to cut it down to a length that it plays successfully at, a lot of those references, a lot of those Easter eggs have fallen by the wayside. And it doesn't really help things to have Matt Smith, who reportedly plays the villain in Morbius. Who
No, he apparently did not take the Marvel PR team's lacking in honesty class there. He doesn't know how to cover up, does he?
I mean, that's it exactly. He was in an interview with Screen Rant. He's like, it's very confusing to him, but, while making this movie, I was never entirely sure if I was playing Lucius Crown from the comics, and I'm still not sure, to be honest. And to be fair here, could they be pulling a Ned Leeds?
Yeah, they totally could be doing something like that, where it's not even reminiscent of the character that you're seeing there today.
Yeah, because I still love that moment in No Way Home where it's Tobey Maguire's version of Spider-Man who's talking with Ned. And
wait a minute. Do you think Matt Smith saw an early cut of the movie, and this is him distancing himself from any responsibility? Like, hey, I don't even know what they're going at, man. I was asked to read a script. I said, I don't know about this. They said, come on, here's a paycheck, and I did it. And I don't know. It is what it is.
I hope not. I mean, I really like this guy.
Oh, I do
too. The word right now is basically, if you liked Venom and its sequel, Let There Be Carnage, you will enjoy Morbius. If, on the other hand, you're going into this expecting another Spider-Man No Way Home, you're going to be disappointed.
It does seem that they have been a little bit more upfront about the fact that Morbius, the film, is taking place somewhere else in the multiverse, that they're not trying to directly tie it into our current MCU. It's still out there somewhere. And I don't know why, but that brings me so much comfort that it's like you can do whatever you want then. If you're off in your own little universe and you're able to claim that, you're isolated, like almost quarantine, right? Be as crazy as you want. Go ahead, have fun. And if it doesn't work, I'm sorry. If it does work, great, do it again. But that idea, like with that Venom cameo at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, where he teleports to another universe, I was like sweating for a minute. Like, oh man, there he is. Damn it, what am I gonna do? And then he teleports to another universe, and I'm like, oh, thank God, he's gone. You know what I mean? So it's like you can do anything you want with those Venom movies now that he's back in his own little corner of whereverville. Like I said, in quarantine, in isolation, have as much fun as you want. And I don't have to worry about it, breaking like a bull in a china shop, all the hard work that Kevin Feige and company have put into their MCU thus far.
All true. And speaking of work, and this is now months and months and months of work, but it's finally paying off with Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. We are getting perilously close to this thing actually opening. Just this past week, the attraction began to appear on park maps. It's in the World Discovery neighborhood of Epcot now. Also, when you make an attraction at a Disney park, one of the very first things you do is like, okay, and they exit through the gift shop. So where's the gift shop? And in this case, Manager Zach Ridley just went on Instagram this week to tell us all about the Cosmic Rewind gift shop, the Treasures of Xandar. And like everything at Disney these days, this store is going to have an elaborate backstory. The Treasures of Xandar is going to be operated by The Broker, a proud Xandarian who's been awarded the contract and has brought part of his famous store here to Epcot. And some of the merchandise pays tribute to Xandar, and items acquired around the galaxy, and of course other items will celebrate the heroes of Xandar, the Guardians of the Galaxy.
I like that we've got characters in the MCU that are like the Broker, the Collector, the Grandmaster. Just not really a name, just a title.
You've made it when you get the in front of you.
Sure.
He's not a broker. He's the broker.
The Broker, right? Yeah.
But again, we were talking about things that celebrate, things that pay tribute, and I'm kind of embarrassed that we let this slide last week when we recorded, Aaron. But we lost William Hurt back on March 13th, and amazing actor. I mean, I remember seeing him in his very first film Ken Russell's Altered States, which was on my radar for the eye-popping effects, but Hurt kept the story tied to emotion. Again, you were worried about this guy who had been dabbling in chemistry and was maybe slipping away.
Didn't Marvel have further down their slate a Thunderbolts series or film in the planning stages?
I want to say that was series.
Okay.
But
so the Thunderbolts would be the team of General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. And also, I believe he ended up becoming a Red Hulk at some point.
Oh, okay.
I
did not know
think.
that.
I'll have to double check it and verify. But yeah, I mean, I thought that he had more story to give the MCU, and so when I had read news of his passing, obviously I was sad for him and his passing, and then I was sad for me because MCU appearances that we will not get to see him in.
He's been playing General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross since 2008 with the Incredible Hulk. But that's the other thing people need to remember. The Incredible Hulk was the second MCU film. And then after that, he reprised the role of Ross in Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame, and as recently as Black Widow in 2021. And I still remember the end of Incredible Hulk with that great scene in the bar where he's sitting there telling the bartender, I guess, holding up a shot glass and like reload. And who comes strolling into the bar but Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark? And what is the line? To the effect of the room reeks of stale beer and defeat. And William Hurt has that wonderful line. I think he actually sort of runs his finger up and down the lapel of Tony Stark's jacket. And it's like, you always have such nice suits.
There's also a one-shot of Coulson and I think it was Agent Stolson. I can't remember which agent the other one was, but they were sitting in a little cafe talking about they needed to send the consultant to meet with Ross. And, and it turns out they sent Stark just to piss off Ross and get the result that they wanted. And yeah, you'll have to go back and check that one out. It's in the list of one-shots that's on Disney Plus.
But there's great.
Also, while we were talking about The Incredible Hulk, that is going to be coming to HBO
Yes,
Max,
yes.
but not going to be coming to Disney Plus, obviously, because Universal has the rights to that film. So
this puzzles me because NBC Universal actually has its own subscription streaming service, which is Peacock, whereas HBO Max is owned by NBC Universal's direct rival, Warner Media, which in turn is also owned by AT&T. So it's like, how did the Hulk end up there?
Money. No, I mean, if you were like HBO and or the parent company, and Marvel is red hot, and they're bringing things to Disney Plus left and right, and you're like, man, I'd like to throw a monkey wrench in those works. What could we do? And it's like, you know what? Let's throw a bunch of money at the Hulk for a minute and just bring it to HBO Plus and go, hey, look what they don't have on Disney Plus because, well, they don't have the rights to it. So if you want to watch that as part of your chronological MCU offering, you have to come over to HBO Max for just one spin. And then you can go back to Disney Plus, right?
I have to admit, I am sorely tempted because I want to see that post-credit scene again. In fact, I actually checked today. What was kind of intriguing is that if you think about how important these post-credits scenes have become to the MCU movie-going experience and how inside of 6 weeks, because you got to remember that the original Iron Man arrived in theaters in early May of 2008, and then just 6 weeks later in June, The Incredible Hulk drops. And in both of these, we had that wonderful moment with Samuel Jackson, who had broken into Tony's home. And, you think you're the only superhero in the world. You have just become part of a bigger universe, and the whole Avengers Initiative thing. And then that lovely exchange between Ross and Stark at the end of The Incredible Hulk. It's like, what if I told you we were putting a team together? And it's like, who's we? To think about what that was like back in 2008, just hinting that something bigger was on the horizon and you had to be patient, and think about it. We had to wait till 2012 when we got our first Avengers movie.
Right. Do you remember the theater when you saw like the first Iron Man, and obviously you knew that there was going to be an end credit scene because that's what we do. Mm-hmm. And I knew there was going to be one, so I stayed seated, and I know whomever went to go see it with me, I made sure that they stayed seated through the credits, and there was probably 3% of the audience that stayed, right? Out of 100 people, like 3 other people stayed. Mm-hmm. And then 5 years later, it was up to about, 20% of the audience stays for the end credit scene. And when we just went to go see Spider-Man, I want to say it was about 50 to 75% are now trained to stay for the end button. And I even saw a younger, like teen, young 20-year-old younger girl who said something about, don't they know about the end credit scene in Marvel movies? And some people are just like, maybe they don't care. They just want to get home. Maybe they got to go to the bathroom, whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, it's weird to see over the years how the audience has been trained. And now I may go see another film like a Batman or something. And I'm going to stick through the credits just in case. I doubt that there would be, but just in case.
Well, that to me is one of the great advantages of living in the internet age, because somebody somewhere will tell you there's an end credit scene.
Right.
I want to say when I went to go see Iron Man, I had read be sure and stay for the end credit scene. They hadn't revealed the whole Nick Fury thing. And to be honest, I was still, at that point in the credits on the high of, Tony Stark, here's your prepared statement. And, the whole notion of, I'm Iron Man, boom, and the film ends.
Right.
That people forget, how entertaining that first movie was. And, and again, I want to say it's been years since I've seen the Edward Norton Incredible Hulk, and now that it's becoming available on HBO Max, I just may have to sit down and watch this again to remind myself, because there was still that sort of whole ugly thing leading into the Avengers where it's like, hey, we're casting Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner, and Edward Norton got very public about it being about money, and it was an interesting time, So, well, anyway, on that note, if you're looking for something to do over the next week or so, yes, you have the Incredible Hulk where you can watch William Hurt's work, but also remember, there are wonderful movies out there like Broadcast News, Kiss of the Spider-Woman. I mean, just a huge talent that sadly, as I understand it, we lost to prostate cancer. So on behalf of Aaron, we extend our sincerest condolences to William Hurt's family and friends at what obviously has to be a difficult time. And again, was still doing Thunderbolt Ross for the MCU universe. In fact, I want to say they shot the scenes with him. Was one of the very last things done for Black Widow. They shot October of 2019. So that's going to do it for this week's show, folks. On behalf of Aaron, thank you for listening. Tell you what, folks, if you could do us a favor, if you get over to Apple Podcasts and rate and recommend the show you just listened to, and if you really, really, really like what you heard, if you want to head over to Bandcamp and subscribe, that would be helpful. Aaron and I both have social media presences. Aaron, do you want to tell folks where they can find you on social media?
Sure. On Twitter, just head over to @AzaProd, and you will learn very important life lessons, like why you should never teach your dog to shake. Jim, it's because they never read the contracts, and they have very little to no understanding of the finer points of, financial deal making in the modern business world. I don't know why the hell you'd get them on the handshake level anyway. I think it's just bad advice. Stay away from it.
Duly noted. Okay. Well, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. Also want to remind you we have a couple other podcasts here. We have The Mothership, Disney Dish with Len Testa. In fact, he and I will be recording a brand new show tomorrow where we will talk about the modern classic Disney theme park attractions. Mr. Testo wants us to talk about what we think are the best rides as the company has come up with since the year 2000. Likewise, we also have Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor. Mr. Taylor is taking a much-deserved break out in Palm Springs right now, though interestingly enough, while he was out there, he also did the media event for Moon Knight, remotely. In fact, he was describing his plan was that he would be in the pool until he had to come out and be on his computer to interview people. So hopefully we'll see some of those stories on the wrap, and maybe he will share some info about what he's learned about Moon Knight out ahead of its March 30th debut. And we have some other stuff coming up very soon that hopefully Len and I and Aaron can talk about. But
we can refer to them with their code names.
Okay.
Right now we've got Project Phoenix and Project Cardboard Box.
Ooh.
And both are exciting, and that's all I can say about them. Otherwise, the Marvel PR team will come and hunt me down. So there you go.
We don't want that to happen.
Nope.
Okay. All right. And that's going to do it for this week, folks. So thanks for listening, and Aaron and I will be back soon.